Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Encounter program sponsored by the Broome County Council of Churches. I'm your host, Mark Kimpland, the pastor at the Endwell United Methodist Church. I am delighted to have our guest who comes with wonderful credentials and experience that I can't wait to learn more about. But our guest this morning is the Reverend Dr. Wilfredo Baez, who is a psychologist at the Greater Binghamton Health Center and also the pastor at the First United Methodist Church in Endicott. Will, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mark. Maybe I'll share just a little bit about myself. Wilfredo Baez, Will Baez, and I, as Mark said, I'm employed now as a psychologist at the Greater Binghamton Health Center. I'm working in inpatient treatment, mostly with adults, and I'll share a little bit about that. Also there, I am the chair of the ethics committee and the cultural competence committees. And I started my work there as a psychologist just about 2 years ago. And I was, for the previous 3 years, I was a chaplain and director of spiritual services there. But I want to back up a little bit and share a little bit about how I got to where I am in my life right now. Another thing about me that I think is real important is I'm married. I've been married for 34 years to Marcia Cotton.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
And have 2 children that are grown, and one out in Denver, he's an attorney, and one in Boston, who's an educator. So it's great.
Congratulations.
So it really goes all the way back. I was born into a family. My father was Puerto Rican, my mom Irish. Attended a lot of our culture got pulled into the white side of the family, including my education, and grew up in projects in Black community. Kind of moved up out of that into a more middle class, neighborhood, predominantly white, and they had to face some difficulties there because of being Puerto Rican. And so, let's see. But yeah, so I grew up there. Faced some challenges, some internal racism, some bigotry in the home after my dad died, and because racism also happens. It gets internalized. It's in families. When there's mixed racial, ethnic families, that can be a challenge. Being in a school with mostly other people who are white, that becomes difficult, and so on. So anyways, I ended up, I did want to be a priest when I was in the Catholic school when I was in the first grade.
Okay.
Because there was a nun and a priest that they were Christ to me. And so the option that was available to me was to be a priest and not a nun. So that's what I was going after. But I wanted to be married. and I wanted to have children. I wanted to be like my dad too.
Sure.
So then I went to college. Got interested. I kind of left some of my Catholicism behind at that particular time because I didn't know how to work that out.
Sure.
So I went out to California for grad school, and they studied at a place called the California Institute of Integral Studies. It was Asian studies then, and I worked, got a master's and worked toward a doctorate in intercultural psychology, philosophy, and religion, and they mostly studied Eastern, religions and Western religions and dialogue between, them and philosophy, and then psychology. So Buddhist psychology is called Abhidharma, and I began to apply that, did research on mindfulness meditation before most people knew about mindfulness meditation.
Yes.
And I did my doctoral work there was predominantly in psychology. That was the degree. And let's see, my first internship was with adolescents who were schizophrenic in inpatient setting, and my second in an outpatient treatment program that was addressing the needs of the Latino and Filipino communities in San Francisco. And then I was privileged and given the opportunity to work at a sister agency that was a Black community mental health agency. And they purposely call themselves Black rather than African American, as it's more inclusive, and it also goes back to the Black is Beautiful movement. And so there I really learned how to work and adapt to another culture, and that was a very meaningful time for me.
Yeah.
I moved back from San Francisco, and that's where the grad school was, and I did things in Berkeley as well. And then I came back to New York State. I moved to Ithaca. I wanted to move back because I was tired of green and brown, and I didn't know how much I liked the season.
Welcome back home. Yes.
And I also was getting all shook up with the earthquakes.
Yes.
So anyways, I came back. Give me a good old blizzard any day.
Yes.
And I went. So I took a position in an alcoholism treatment program, and was a counselor there for a few years, senior counselor, and then I became the director, the clinic director after my third year. And a few years after that, as I grew the program, we went from 4 counselors to 10, and solved a big 1-year waiting list, created alternative to incarceration programs, and jail program, programs for people that gay, LGBT, TQ. Some alternative type programs as well, and that was a good period of time, around 10 years, and wow. So then I had a call to go into ministry, and I was involved at St. Paul's United Methodist Church, there when Rebecca Dolch was pastor. Yes. And there were a bunch of us that were called from that place in that time. So decided to go to seminary, went to Colgate Rochester Divinity School. And that was a good thing. I wanted to go to other school, but the timing didn't work out, and I was ready to go. Right, so I wanted to go to Duke or Drew. So, but anyways,
Will, I'm struck by your history here, as you're moving and you're sharing this and such things, as to how it really mirrors, at least how I'm perceiving, it mirrors your formative years, your struggles, and your, all the things that you had to endure. Am I reading that right? Is that
that's right? That's right. Yeah, but for me, theology is a working something out internally in preparation for what goes on outside. And so everything about me in terms of my gender identity, my sexual orientation, my ethnicity, my theology, my psychology, it all mirrors something's happening on inside. And that kind of manifests in my life outside. It manifests both as the joy of being who I am and the struggle of being who I am. I encounter, and I find it's easier to work with people who are different, from me, because I engage them from the inside, and I want to know them from the inside. And sometimes that's hard work and torturous, but I think that's what love is. Is being able to, really. It's kind of interesting because it's both being yourself and engaging the other person as themselves. And it's not about doing anything. It's about being, a quality of being that is really important. So it's an interesting thing that happened at Colgate Rochester Divinity School. At that point, they hadn't done anything really much with interfaith, and they had a Black Studies program, and they had a traditional program, a White Studies program, and and a Women's Studies program, which was a good program. So and they were all good programs. But one day, and I'm kind of a border person. In Latino culture, you say the future is mixed. The future is mixed, and mainly because Latino culture is Central American, Latin America. It's like a mix of African and Spanish, sometimes Portuguese, a little German, and indigenous. It really starts there with the indigenous, and so the future is mixed. Rather than so. Anyways, I was always very comfortable moving back and forth between the Black and the white communities, and really didn't know where I belonged in that particular thing. And one day I started to feel some pain, and what it was that I felt invisible. And because my brown was hidden because I'm also white. And I had to work that out. I hated my whiteness for a while because I was identified with my brownness. And so I have to come out with my brownness. And when I bring out my brownness, that's an opportunity to give up some privilege, for better and for worse.
Right.
I remember when I went back and I changed my name back to my father's name, because he named me Wilfred John Baez. Right, just like you, like you, Baez, right? Right. It's a and at a certain point, it was actually there that I decided I needed to go and take my father's name back.
Okay.
Right. So Wilfredo, a district superintendent came over to me and said to me, "Will, people are talking. People are talking." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, it's about you changing your name. They're wondering if you know who you are." He's talking about clergy. If you know who you are, And what are you trying to do? Are you trying to screw up your career?
Wow. Wow.
Right?
Hmm.
So I think that was an interesting issue, because what people expect of us, people of color, even if you don't look, color, take a look at my father,
Yeah.
and you'll see. They expect us to de-emphasize difference so that we fit in. If you're a pastor, and you're, say, Hispanic, one thing, so you want to work in a Hispanic church, is one thing they'll say. Or they'll say, all right, so now you have to assimilate into the church that you go to, rather than helping the church to adapt to people of color.
Yes.
Just like a long time ago, we asked the churches to adapt to women.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in Delaware, Ohio, and hearing a pastor say to his congregation, they're going to, maybe not this time, but they're going to appoint a woman to you, and they're not going to ask any questions. You better be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying as a church, we have to prepare the church down the road, rather than say adapt now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is the stance that's taken by our conference.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's right from the horse's mouth.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I understand his perspective. He doesn't want to see the pastor hurt.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And he wants to protect the pastor. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But that really comes from working with the congregations when you bring somebody in and having a consultant working alongside them.
Yes.
Right? Because we as a church are right now in between minimization and acceptance, right? So when you accept, you deeply comprehend another culture, but you're not yet adapting to it. Because there might be some things in there, like we got to protect our pastors.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? As if the pastors can't take care of themselves,
Right.
as if the people of color can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
And that goes into the, protecting the institution and all of those power games and all of that. And friends, I just want to just share that we have the honor and the privilege to have as our guest the Reverend Dr. Will Baez, a psychologist at the Greater Binghamton Health Center and also the pastor at the First United Methodist Church in Endicott and such. But that is a profound concept, because that really, as you're describing, that is love and love in action, and that's hard work.
yes,
And it's difficult, and it breaks down walls and all the things all the truths that we have been taught over the years, as disjointed as they might be.
Yeah. I remember when I went to graduate school for the first time, I met with accidentally, actually, he happened to be there and I happened to be there before I applied, to the director of the clinical psychology program. And he was the director of the master's program. And I was planning on going someplace else. And we sat down, we had a conversation for 90 minutes. He just made the time for me. He was correcting some information he heard at the desk that turned me off. I was walking out the door. And it was about psychotherapy and love. Right. So, and that is what makes psychotherapy effective, is love. It's holding space for this other person to be and to grow and to heal and to struggle and to be present with them. We call it administrative present, right? And but it's also very, and you see this in chaplaincy. You're holding a space for this other person, and it's not about you, right? And listening is even different than the way that we're all trained, right? We're trained, it is reflective, you're listening, but reflective listening gets in the way of somebody telling their story
Yeah.
and experiencing themselves. And when you can experience yourself in the presence of an other, who is an unselfish other, who is there unconditionally for you, that creates healing and growth. And people can face those parts of them that are difficult to integrate into their personality and into their life.
So, well, let me ask you this. What, in your experience, what has been some of those roadblocks to experiencing other people as you describe it in our culture? What have you, what have you experienced, or through other people? What are some of those things that really prohibit us from experiencing the other?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So I think sometimes this is really cool. There's this intercultural development continuum developed by a man named Bennett. And he talks about these stages of moving from a monocultural mindset to a intercultural mindset. But if we think about this also deals with our relationships with other people. Like I can treat you, you and I are different cultural entities, right? We come from a variety of places to our location right now, right?
right.
And so first time, what happens is people kind of deny differences between people, right? They don't believe other people when they talk about their experience because they don't have that experience. And so it doesn't fit. There's no place to attach it. They can't
Right. Yeah.
generalize, right?
Sure.
Just the way it works. And then the next thing, and we see it happening on the national level, politically, we see it happening in the just not even politically, just in terms of black and white relationships, and we see it taking place in the church, and it's polarization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you miss, you, how do you put this? You judge difference.
Yeah.
My God is better than your God.
Yeah.
My
Or
race is better than yours. My
yeah.
party is better than yours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we don't know how to dialogue between the poles. And we keep on looking for solutions on our side. And until there is a dialogue between the two, and this goes back to the philosopher Hegel, right, where there's thesis and antithesis.
Mhm.
And never do the twain meet if they continue trying to prove themselves right and at the expense of the other. They must be, if I'm right, they must be wrong,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So rather than we're always right and wrong, there's
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's everybody, right? And how do we understand each other? And then when
Yes.
you begin to really engage, also and not just on a cognitive level, but a
Yes.
full personal level, emotional level, and you give each other space for that, you create a common space to work in, and you establish some rules to enter into that space that
Yes.
maintains safety and equity and all of that. You can begin to reach a place of synthesis or solution that is beyond what the poles believe, right? So I think so. One of the beauties of that, if you work with that, I remember doing some work on national healthcare in Ithaca, and I like doing that. Your work, but a lot of my colleagues in that work were bashing the other side, and my philosophy was, well, we're never going to have a a good national healthcare plan if we don't all. Because otherwise, we'll try to sink the one that we already have. One side wins, and you start over the next. Right. So you need to be able to, and it's more than compromise. It's really working together. and communicating. So we got the city of Ithaca to send a resolution supporting national health care. Right? That was easy. We expected that going in.
Yes.
We went to the Tompkins County Legislature, and we had a talk. And I made a presentation, and I showed complete respect. I said, I don't know if a single payer system is the one. There might be regional. There might be other things that come up out of dialogue. So I'm really willing to listen and to hear what these other perspectives are. So they all listened to me. I had legislators invite me to come and explain. They said, I don't agree with you, but I want to give you a chance to talk.
Yes.
The Tompkins County, a predominantly conservative group, voted to send that resolution to Congress. Right? And I wasn't manipulating.
Right.
I wasn't playing a game. I was just being truthful. Right?
Yes.
So, and then the other part is minimization.
Yes.
And so in minimization, you de-emphasize difference.
Yes.
Right. And so like when you talk about a melting pot, the melting pot, you get absorbed into the dominant culture.
Yes.
You make me invisible, right? And actually you make us all kind of invisible, right? Like someone's no longer Italian, they're American, right? They're an Italian American with all their cultural beauty. Right.
Yep.
So,
Well, I thank you. I could talk another hour on this, and I really appreciate your time. We have been blessed friends by Reverend Dr. Wilfredo Baez, the psychologist. The psychologist at the Greater Binghamton Health Center and pastor at the First United Methodist Church of Endicott. Friends, have a wonderful day. Will, thank you so much for your wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
God bless.